Hello, and welcome back to the Book Service Podcast. There is much to be said about the power of storytelling. Sometimes, a story that is only a few pages long can have a deeper, longer-lasting effect than one that runs to 1,000 pages. Short stories offer us a glimpse into the lives of other people, but only, it seems, for a moment in time. Because of their brevity, short stories have a peculiarity about them. They are, in a sense, quite mystical. When the story has ended, we come out of that world in which we have witnessed one of life's mysteries, and are left to wonder at its significance, for the characters, and perhaps, for ourselves. The series I present to you will feature readings of short fiction, which are narrated by the librarians at the Stoneham Public Library. This is Slices of Life. This week's story takes us to a timeless time and a placeless place. It is a tale, a fable, of valor and honor, of love and sacrifice. In some faraway kingdom, a man climbs the ranks of life and is given, at each step of the way, some reward for his noble deeds. When he realizes that he has gotten all that one could ask for, he is met with a decision to renounce it all for a new kind of life. We are then shown, and are led to consider, that the things we hold closest to the heart are just too valuable to give away. The Brass Ring by Maurice Baring. A long time ago, in a country which is now forgotten, there was a king who was heedless of public affairs. He cared only for hunting and playing the flute, and left the business of state to his ministers. As soon as he came to the throne, it was settled, for political reasons, that he should marry the daughter of a neighboring king. The princess who was chosen for him was young and beautiful. Her face had smooth curves and lines, like those of a wax image carved by a Greek artist. Her eyes were slanting and gray, and her hair was like silk, and sometimes you thought it was brown, and sometimes you thought it was gold. She was as pale as a rare flower that a breath of cold air kills. The king did not love her, but he was proud of her beauty. She respected the king. She never laughed, and even her smile was sad. Now, at the court, there was a youth called Michael, an officer in the king's bodyguard. He was young, good to look upon, and full of spirit. Directly Michael saw the queen, he fell in love with her, and his life changed from that day. But he never spoke of his love, even to his best friend. He worshipped the queen from afar, and prayed that someday he might lay down his life for her. A war broke out, and the king took Michael to the war with him, and Michael fought bravely, and won glory on the field of battle. And when the war was over, he was made the captain of the king's bodyguard. Now he saw the queen more often, and sometimes she would speak a word to him, or smile as he passed, and this would make him happy for many days. As time went on, the king's distaste for business increased, and he left things more and more to his ministers, who were knaves and cared nothing for the country, but only for their own pockets. And Michael discovered their evil ways, and found out, moreover, that they were betraying their country to the foreigner. And he faced them with their villainy, and they confessed everything. And the king beheaded some, and banished others, and made Michael his prime minister, because he knew he could trust him. So Michael and the queen saw more of each other than before, and sometimes he would sit beside her at the banquet, and sometimes she would consult him on this or that, or talk over the bringing up of her only child, who was a boy. And one day, when the little prince was only 4 years old, the wing of the palace in which he slept caught fire, and the roaring flames spread and cut off all approach to the room where he slept. And Michael fetched a ladder and climbed into the burning wing, and rushed through the crackling rooms and the suffocating smoke, and bore the child safe out of danger. And when he had done this, he went back once more into the flames, although everyone begged him to stop, in order to fetch the prince's nurse, for whom the little boy was crying, and he saved the nurse's life. He was badly burnt and scorched, and for days he lay between life and death. But in the end, he got well, and the king rewarded him, and the queen thanked him. After this, never a day passed but the queen said a kind word to Michael. He fulfilled his duties so well that the country grew prosperous, and people said that Michael was a great man. When war broke out again, he was put in command of the army, and he defeated the enemy, and the fame of his victories spread far and wide. After the war was over, in the winter, the little prince fell sick and died, and the queen nearly died of grief, and she lay sick for a long time. But in the spring she revived, and when she saw Michael, for the first time she smiled, albeit sadly. But, as time went on, the king grew tired of hearing the praises of Michael sung, and he sent him to govern a distant province and made another man minister in his place. The evening Michael went away, the queen sent for him. She was in the garden. It was a summer evening. The bats were flitting in the twilight, and there was a smell of jessamine in the soft air. The queen said to Michael, "You are going on a long journey tomorrow, and who knows when you will return, or what may befall us all during your absence. Take this as a keepsake." And she gave him a little brass ring. And Michael remembered that the little prince used to play with this ring and to wear it on his forefinger. "It is too small for your finger," said the queen. "I will wear it round my neck," said Michael. Then the queen looked at him and smiled, and her smile was sadder than it had ever been. From the window came the sound of the king's flute playing. He was playing a merry tune, and he played with great skill. Then the queen turned and went indoors before Michael could answer a word. The summer and the autumn passed, the winter came, and one day a messenger in a sledge brought dispatches from the king to Michael in his distant province, ordering the court to go into mourning because the queen was dead. And Michael and all the king's servants put on black clothes, and the flag on his palace flew at half-mast. Another year passed, and another messenger came with the news. that the king was dead, and that the people had chosen Michael to be king in his stead. And Michael came back and entered the capital of the country in triumph. And the bells rang, and the people threw flowers in his path, and he was crowned with pomp in the cathedral, and there were great rejoicings. But Michael found that the country had fared badly in his absence, and it took him a long time to set everything to rights. But in the end, the country became more prosperous than before. And Michael grew to be a great king, beloved by his people, and feared by his enemies. And an emperor offered him his daughter in marriage, but Michael said him nay. One day, he summoned a minister whom he trusted, and said to him, "Tomorrow I start on a long journey. I leave the country in your hands." And Michael traveled into a distant country, in disguise, until he reached a city where learning was held in great esteem. And there he begged a wise man to teach him all he knew. And the sage taught him all he knew. And one day the sage said to him, "I can teach you no more, for the pupil is wiser than the master." Then Michael taught others and acquired renown for wisdom, so that men came to consult him from afar, and nobody knew that he had once been a king. Michael was now 40 years old, and as famous for his wisdom as he had once been for his prowess and for his kingship. But one day he burnt all his books, and left the city and sought a monastery, where monks lived in fasting and prayer and in the service of the poor. And he said to the abbot of the monastery, "For 10 years I served my country as a soldier, and for 10 years I served my country as a minister and a king. And for 10 years, casting from me the glory of this world, I learned and taught wisdom. But now I would serve God only. Let me enter this monastery." The abbot asked Michael whether he would give up all the things of the world. And Michael said, "I have given up glory, power, and knowledge. What is there left for me to give up?" And as he said this, something fell on the stone floor and made a tinkling noise. Michael saw that the string round his neck was broken, and that the brass ring, which the queen had given him, had fallen to the ground. The abbot said, "What is that, my son?" Michael picked up the ring and answered, "That is only a little brass ring, which was once a child's plaything." And the abbot said, "Cast it out of the window, into the moat below, for thou hast done with worldly possessions." And Michael said, "Give me thy blessing, Father, and let me go. I am not worthy to enter this house and to do this service, for I cannot throw away that ring." The abbot blessed him and bade him farewell, and told him he should be welcome if peradventure it were God's will that he should some day return. And Michael set out on a long pilgrimage and lived off the alms which he begged on the road. That's the end of another episode of the Book Service Podcast, brought to you by the Stoneham Public Library. We hope you enjoyed the story. As always, thanks for listening, and keep on reading.